All right, we are live.
Yep. Yeah, there's actually a ton to sift through if we end up waiting. I don't think we're going to end up waiting. So.
Yeah, the draft will probably fill in maybe 3 seconds.
JJ, Arthega, Whiteside. New life.
Which draft are we doing?
Best Ball Mania 3.
Okay.
$10,000 draft. Let's hit it, Nick.
Alrighty. Bang.
What's going on, everyone? Or should I more appropriately say, yo, what's going on? And welcome to the Stokastic Best Ball channel. We are drafting another Best Ball Mania 3 team as we wind down the dog days of August, trying our best to diversify a little bit with our players. And we got a great guest today. As mentioned in the video description, not only do we have Nick Lepre, as we have every Monday, follow him at NotoriousFNTSY. We've got, it says Stokastic Legend, Dave Loughy Loughran. Follow him at Loughy_D. What's going on, Loughy?
What's good, boys? Thanks for having me on. First Underdog draft show that I've done with either of you guys this year. I know you've been pumping them out every Monday, so I'm happy to be here. Let's make a winner. Let's win some real money, maybe $1 million each.
That sounds real nice.
Or $1 million. Well, we win the regular season, right? That's $1 million, right?
Mm-hmm. And one of our other teams takes second place, right? And then this team takes first place and that first place in the regular season crown. So this is the $2 million winner.
Okay.
One for the playoffs. And then maybe last week's with Peter Overzet or something like that. Or maybe the one we did in Chicago with Stokastic's Eric Lindquist. I said Aaron.
Aaron.
Yeah, we're taking it all. We're taking it all.
We're
hopefully
taking it
you
all,
guys
exactly.
Aren't far behind.
Yeah, welcome into the chat, by the way. Dozen of you hanging out. We're going to give it just a second to fill up in here as we go live. But as the preseason has started, not only has Stokastic started pumping out the content. Oh my goodness. If you're not following us over at the Odd Shopper channel, guys, what are you doing? Loughy's got videos for every preseason slate. We, of course, have insanely good DFS projections for these preseason games headed up by Matt Gajeski. And of course, we are continuing to pump out these best ball drafts. Truly, there's never been a year where we've had more best ball NFL content over the channels all over Stokastic.com. And now that there are games actually being played, we unfortunately have injury news to deal with and some positives here. Why don't we start there? Why don't we start with the optimism coming out of Houston? Dameon Pierce looked like the real deal. Nick, we'll start with you because he has been one of your guys in these late rounds, and now we're going to see him shoot up. How are you feeling about this call so far?
Yeah, it feels great, baby, in the wise words of Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, it was something I've been talking about for months now. He wasn't even that great at Florida, but it just seemed like the position he was in, that he should easily be the #1 running back in Houston. And based on everything we've seen, I would be genuinely concerned by the coaching of the Houston Texans if he wasn't the lead back day one.
That's kind of what I saw. Oh, man, the name is eluding me right now. But one of a longtime Houston Chronicle writer was saying if they don't start Dameon Pierce, the Texans are not putting their best team on the field.
John McClain?
Yes, it was. Thank you very much. So that goes a pretty long way for me. People don't usually take bold takes like that, especially ones kind of connected to the team in that regard. Loughy, were you on the Marlon Mack train or thinking about Rex Burkhead, or was this the only person you're taking chances on late in drafts?
I think in spots like this, you can always look at a Marlon Mack type, but he's proven that he's not somebody that's going to. There's a couple ways to look at this, and I agree with what Nick said. Also, I have a question for you guys, an important one after this. When it comes to bad teams, people just don't want to draft players on presumably bad teams. Mm-hmm. But then what happens if one of those players is actually really good, right? And they just fall by the wayside. Nobody pays any attention to them. It's the easiest opportunity to mitigate any risk and take a shot on upside guys like Pierce. It happens all the time where you're looking at a backfield. You go, all right, they suck. That's why nobody wants to draft anybody from them. Yeah, they suck, but there's not a single guy right now. And this is, prior to the preseason, prior to the last week or so, there's not a single guy that is the definitive #1 on this team. They're not going anywhere. So you could just start a backup not a backup, but like a journeyman veteran. You have like Rex Burkhead on there, or Marlon Mack, or anybody. But Dameon Pierce is the one upside guy. That why not take the shot on him? And what if Davis Mills actually isn't awful? He looked a lot better hear me out. Final quarter of the season, he actually looked competent. Not great. You're not winning a Super Bowl with him, but he didn't look horrible and helped Brandon Cooks to another 1,000-yard season. If he's decent enough to even just put up, but even below middle of the league averages in terms of points per game and yardage, then Pierce is going to be very good for where you're getting him at.
Couldn't agree more, guys. We saw this 2 seasons ago, basically by the book. James Robinson was the only NFL caliber running back on the Jacksonville Jaguars, an atrocious team, but he got all the volume, and he was one of the top running backs in fantasy, especially considering the place where you were getting him. He was basically undrafted in 2020 fantasy drafts. Those are the kinds of league-winning picks you could eventually have.
Eight of the top 20 running backs that year, Matt, were on sub 500 teams. And then the next year, 4 of the top 10 running backs were on 500 or worse teams for fantasy purposes.
All right.
So
I love that stat, especially because, if you're already seeing 9.8 yards per carry, I know there's some variance in that stat, but if we keep seeing performances like that, I expect Dameon Pierce to be in the 8th or 7th round by the time August finishes here. I'm trying to look through. Really, the only other major news is that Zach Wilson is seeing a specialist in Los Angeles. There is optimism at this point that he can have the meniscus trim surgery, which isn't as good for his long-term athletic viability, but it would make sure he was on the field in about a month's time, maybe 6 weeks. If they ultimately need to do the repair, that is a season-ending surgery. So there is a possibility we're not out of the woods yet, and Joe Flacco or Mike White may be starting. Does your opinion, and Loughy, we'll start with you here, does your opinion about the Jets change if they move to a more stationary, upright quarterback in either Flacco or White, or really because you were kind of down on them to begin with, it doesn't really change much at all?
It's funny because Zach Wilson is actually sneaky mobile. We saw that on the scramble, right? He's not Lamar Jackson, but he can move. We have no idea if he's actually good or not. You can say all you want, but we don't know if he's good. We don't know how much of a difference it makes. How much of a downgrade last year was Mike White when he came in over Zach Wilson? Do I think it'll be a considerable downgrade just given Wilson's pedigree? Yeah, I'm obviously not blind to that. I think it hurts I do think it hurts them because I want the guy that they drafted, as a very, very, very early pick. That's who I want as their quarterback because I think the ceiling and the upside is markedly higher than anything. And that's not even a debate. Just considerably higher than anything you're getting out of White or Joe Flacco. Can I ask you guys one quick question, though? One quick question, and we get back. Have you discussed, because you do this every Monday, right? You two do this every Monday. Have you discussed what you like? Whose account are you drafting on right now?
Mine.
Oh,
mine every time.
Have you discussed what you would do if Nick did win, or if there was a monster hit?
Oh my gosh, we'd probably have to come up with a contract, wouldn't we? We'd have to write something up.
Thinking about, fellas.
Wow. The adult in the room really making us think already. And we should be drafting like we're drafting correctly. That's one of the things that we harp on. Draft as if you're correct, especially in the early rounds. We need to take a little bit of our own advice here, Lepre. But that's a very good point. We got to go into that.
Yeah, split it up. Just Venmo him whatever he's used so far, half of that, and be like, I don't want it back. I don't want it back. These are my entry fees.
But then there's the conversation about how, the Stokastic could be intertwined in all this. We'd have to work it out. Oh, Yokastic. I'm sorry, we're bouncing all around. But yeah, maybe he did pull a muscle with his mom's girlfriend, his girlfriend, supposedly. Yeah. Zach Wilson could have, had a pre-existing injury of some
Nick,
sort.
You best believe I'm sending you $7 after this.
Overzet said the same thing. And I was like, well, I don't technically pay for these. The company does, so.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's what I was getting at. There's some intertwining of this whole. So now it's it's a
technically.
whole thing.
Oh, big mistake,
they haven't given me any
big
money
mistake,
yet. I paid for all of them. Technically, they haven't sent me any money. So
they haven't sent it to you yet.
No.
Tell them you don't want it.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. I'm just saying.
All right. With that, let's enter the draft. That's going to complicate things further.
All right.
Let's do it. Best Ball Mania 3. What's the percentage filled? It's like 60%. It's
Uh,
gonna fill. It'll fill by the end.
56.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on in here.
All right, we're waiting on 5 people. Should go fast. As many suspected at this point, Alvin Kamara unlikely to be suspended. We've been drafting him there essentially since the beginning of August. Loughy, you had a video on our Stokastic Fantasy Football channel, said the same thing.
Where have you been taking him?
Middle of the second.
Okay.
Yeah,
I still think that's good. It's still perfectly reasonable value.
end of the first, I'm like kind of comfortable with now that we're getting more clarity.
How worried
Oh,
are you
Jesus.
about the depth on that team, Nick and Matt?
Nick,
For
hit it.
Kamara. Like in terms of last year, we saw a lot less pass catching opportunity, but he was still great on the ground. But now you've got Olave, you've got Michael Thomas seemingly looking great. You've got Jarvis Landry. Like how do you come to terms with that?
I think he's going to be just fine. I mean, he's just such a good player that you would think the team would have to get him involved. And it's not like Jarvis Landry is going to be seeing an extreme target share in this offense. So I really do think that he's going to be just fine, especially since we saw Jameis did like to dump the ball off to him. If Jameis gets hurt and we have to deal with like Ian Book or Taysom Hill, then things are going to get really bad for Kamara. But right now, I think he's fine.
That's true. That's true. We can't. I know Winston like had a setback, like a tweak, but they say he's fine. You can't always rely on rational coaching, and we got Dennis Allen and a new coaching regime in there in New Orleans, but I still think rational coaching says that you get Kamara his touches first. I really hope that's the case, especially as he's there all season. I think from a volume standpoint, assuming health, he's like an end of the first, beginning of the second pick for me now.
I like it.
Gotcha.
And more touchdown equity too now, a lot more than last year.
JJ with the 1 overall, followed by Taylor McCaffrey. Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 2. Hey, what's up, awesome? Yo, getting the 102. Very nice. Taking JJ Arcega-Whiteside, he says. And only 1 red badge. That's right. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, we're
Captain-
drafting with. Oh, you can go.
No, go ahead, man.
Like I said, we are drafting with Mike, obviously, and then we're also drafting with multiple people that I've drafted with before from Twitter. So this might be a decently difficult draft.
You're saying it's sharp?
Sharper than the average draft, yeah, I'd assume.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Captain Spock saying it. If you were, if you're in July and you were following along with this whole, this whole situation when it comes to Alvin Kamara, it
I'd
looked.
take a chance on Henry or Diggs for me. Sorry, we're off the clock there.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, who do you guys want? I'm fine with any of these guys. It's the first round.
If Henry's healthy this year, he's going to smash there. But
I actually think he has low-key the higher ceiling if you're just thinking about
I agree.
being the number 1 overall player in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, how do you not lean on him again?
Yeah.
Totally
I'd
agree.
be shocked if they like use Hassan Haskins even like at all in reality, right? He's just the handcuff. He has no value at all. So this is an offense that's going to want to run the ball, especially if Burks isn't consistent and then Robert Woods isn't 100% because of when he got hurt last year. I mean, it just seems like Henry's locked in for 1 million touches.
I agree. Expected fantasy points says that Henry is like the elite of the elite, even though we say like, well, it's always rushing volume. It's not always goal line because Tannehill actually vultures low key at the goal line, or pass catching's not always there. It's just there's so much volume in terms of rushes when he's healthy. It just doesn't really matter to me. Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, Travis Kelce at the 112. Kelce Mixon is like the boring 12-13 pick that I feel like is going to just be very easily a smash play at the end of the season. Like, obviously that worked. Kelce could get 150 targets this year.
It's shocking to see how far Kelsey has fallen in some drafts, though. I've seen Kelsey go in the middle of the second in a couple of drafts.
You think it's just age concern? Like, I don't think the volume is any concern.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, the volume is clearly going to be there without Tyreek Hill. We know there's one consistent in Kansas City. It's Kelsey, so I'm not worried at all. We are back up on the board here. We drafted Derrick Henry first. Loughy, what do you want to do?
Not Aaron Jones.
Oh, shoot.
I mean, look, if you guys want Aaron Jones, that's fine, but I would take Alvin Kamara over Aaron Jones at this point. I mean, listen, I love Javonte Williams, but Alvin Kamara's got nobody behind him. Mike Evans constantly has pulled hamstrings, and they've got a plethora of weapons there. And it looks like Chris Godwin's ahead of schedule in terms of recovery. Alvin Kamara is the one guy in the backfield that you're like, all right, there's nobody that's going to take work away from him.
Definitely agree.
And we basically we lived up to exactly what we said in our analysis to start the show, exactly where we would take Alvin Kamara. We took him as a value. Now we're set up for the double hero RB strategy, maybe even a hyper fragile build. And I don't feel like we've reached or forced any kind of strategy here over the first 20 picks of the draft here. I'm very happy with this start.
And you arguably have 2 first-round players.
Yeah. I mean, by the end of August, Kamara could be pick 11, pick 12. Wouldn't surprise me.
I agree. Yeah, I'm thinking like worst case is 13, 14. Worst case.
I know we're on a best ball channel here, but in your home league, expect someone to reach for him in your home league. Like, unless you have a super savvy room. Yeah, as we have a minute here, Brett asks, can you explain the hyper fragile build? Absolutely. We're actually talking today behind the scenes about doing a more in-depth video about this, because I still feel like there's a ton of strategy to unpack here. I'll go quickly so we get before the pick. The hyper fragile build means taking a robust RB approach and then just being done with the position. So taking 4 or maybe even 3 running backs total very early in the draft, and then assuming that they hit their absolute ceiling, meaning you take no one at the running back position as their backup. Technically, you could do it with the wide receiver position, but because you start 3 in an underdog draft, it's really not recommended to play it that way. Plus, the variance is higher. So it's really 3 or 4 running backs and then completely stopping drafting that position. It's actually one of my favorite ways to draft, just because you can take the quantity over quality approach with the wide receiver position, where there are so many players I like. So we've talked about that on previous shows, Nick, that the wide receiver position gets much deeper in the double-digit rounds. Hyperfragile helps you get there.
Sure. And, I mean, I know we just talked about Mike Evans a couple seconds ago, but going in pick 27, I feel like Mike Evans is a steal in the 3rd round.
Love him there. Love him.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong. I love Mike Evans every year, but he's insanely touchdown dependent because there's so many mouths to feed. But by the way, Matt, I have a question about these approaches, like hyper fragile, zero running, whatever you want to call it.
Pittman for me.
What's that?
Well,
we're on the clock.
Right now,
I'm going to say Pittman.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hell yeah.
Okay, Pittman. All right, keep going, Loughy.
How stringent are you about something like that? And here's what I mean. You get 4 running backs, everything's going according to plan. And then you come up in the 9th round, and there's a running back that you love that's just sitting there that's probably dropped way further than he should have. Do you continue with the hyperfragile approach and fade that running back, or do you take him because he's the best value on the board, or a zero running back approach where you're not going running backs, but what happens if someone's just in way too good of a spot for you to pass up? Like, how strict are you about something like that, and how often will you allow it to handcuff you in the event that the best player on the board can't be drafted because you're following your original approach?
This is actually one where your strategy should change depending on how many drafts you're doing in a tournament. Because if you only have 1 to 5 drafts that you're doing in something like the Best Ball Mania tournament, and you have a great feel about the projection of some 9th or 10th round player, and you feel like you've got a steal, go for it. But if you're doing multiple drafts, the dozens of drafts, 20 to 30, maybe more than that, I actually think you want to lean further on overarching strategies and letting the wisdom of the crowd help you out, because you'll get differentiation naturally through having multiple drafts. So if that makes sense, I'm leaning on the value if I'm only doing, say, less than a dozen drafts.
All right.
That makes sense.
So here, I feel like this is actually still a chance to do a hyper-fragile approach, because we could take maybe one of the last remaining bell cows. I know we like Breece Hall. In this kind of build-out where we have so many guaranteed touches in our first 2 running backs, a player like Breece Hall, who we know has a talent-based ceiling that's significantly higher than a lot of the running backs he goes around, that's the kind of bet I'm taking in a top-heavy tournament like Best Ball Mania. How about you guys?
Yeah, you know my answer.
So yeah, I think it's significantly more value than J.K. Dobbins in terms of ceiling, overall ceiling, what we're chasing here. I don't think it's time for quarterback. Marquise Brown is kind of a okay pick there for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of out on Hollywood right now.
Yeah, I'm not particularly fond of him either. Not at that ADP, at least. Breece.
Yeah.
The thing about Breece Hall is like he has. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Nick and I just are reading Hollywood wrong, but Breece Hall has legit league-winning upside if the Jets are even half decent.
Yes.
The Becton news is a blow. But here, I actually want to say something. If they have to switch to Joe Flacco or Mike White for any significant amount of time, I actually think because you take away the scramble ability of the quarterback, the dump-off ability goes up, or probability, I should say. So a player like Breece Hall getting more targets, that opportunity slightly ticks up for me with this injury news.
Sure. And hey, they didn't have Becton last year, and PFF still ranked them 13th in run blocking. Like, that wasn't their biggest issue. Michael Carter's 5'8". Can't expect him to be racking up 1,000-yard seasons no matter who he's running in front of. But yeah, I don't know. I like Breece Hall a lot. Just the upside itself. Plus, they signed Lake and Tomlinson too. So it's not like they don't still have good players. George Fant's coming off a career year. Vera Tucker is a first-round pick that they traded up for. Like, they're not dead just because they lost Becton.
I got a question for you guys. Do you guys think that based upon where you live, your fantasy draft is different, like with your friends? Like, for instance, Loughy, do people take more Eagles players in your draft?
100%. I actually did a video on it the other day on top mistakes, and I coined the term called subconscious bias, where you're subconsciously – subconscious homerism, sorry. So you're subconsciously a homer because you don't realize – if you were paying – look at it this way. If you're – especially in the Philly area – like, you have so much, like, football's huge around here. So you have just all of this flooding your senses at all times. You know everything about what's going on in camp, in preseason. So you just assume, like, oh, A.J. Brown's killing it. Oh, Miles Sanders looks great too. Oh, how about anybody? Devontae Smith, these guys, Jalen Hurts, these guys look great. But if you were paying the same amount of attention to every single training camp in the league, you'd be getting the exact same input. So you're not. Which makes you overdraft on all of those guys. Absolutely, I think so.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I feel like where I live in New Jersey, like a lot of my friends Giants fans, so Saquon's like a first-round pick, and then Breece Hall, who we just took in the 4th round, is probably like a 3rd-round pick.
For sure.
You guys, we should go quarterback here. You notice that Jalen Hurts was reached for as a quarterback too, and so we've got Lamar or Kyler. Lamar's my smash pick here. Just because we're getting him, a lot of people are dealing with him at QB3, QB2. We're getting him at QB5. These are the types of ways you can read the board. We don't need quarterback here, but talk about number 1 overall upside. That's what we want to chase in these top heavy tournaments once again.
Yeah, I mean he looks really good. Like he gained I think 15 pounds of muscle. And the balls he was throwing, based on training camp footage I've seen, he looks significantly stronger. His arm looks stronger than last year, at least based on what I've seen. Again, training camp footage isn't something you should put all the way forward, but I do think it means something.
Agreed. And to get back to your point, Loughy, I thought that was a very astute observation in that video that you're talking about. I absolutely think the homerism thing exists, and sometimes it actually can be negative, right? Like, I grew up in DC, and sometimes, sorry, there's a buzz at my door. Sometimes there is like a ton of negative press that will actually get you off of players. Like, people just assumed that there was no way Terry McLaurin could be a thing. There was just too many red or yellow flags, and basically his first day on the field, he proved himself a star. So I think it kind of goes both ways. And you see it to a larger scale with the Hard Knocks effect. If someone does really well or really poorly in Hard Knocks, you notice their ADP completely shift. that's what the media is doing on a small scale in every single home draft, especially
For
based
sure.
around a specific location.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, another Hard Knocks effect, because I've been doing those preseason videos over on OddsShopper for betting. You should have seen the line get just hammered towards Detroit because of Hard Knocks. Great. Like, first of all, I love what's going on in Detroit. Okay. I like everything that's going on in Detroit.
Dan Campbell
I'm
is
always
just
what's that?
Dan Campbell is just chef's kiss for content. It's just
Love
just
Dan,
great.
but not just content. I like him, and his players love him. Hands down, his players love him. And other than Week 1 against the Eagles, but you should have seen that. And listen, people call me a homer. I don't know. Matt's done plenty with me. Yeah, I like Miles Sanders every year because I actually think he's good and he's run terribly. But I'm not as high on AJ Brown as you or most people this year. I'm not high on Dallas Goedert. If anything, I'm a pessimist for the most part. But it doesn't mean if there are players on a team that I root for that I like that I'm gonna like force myself not to draft them either.
That makes sense to me.
What about you, Nick, with Miami?
Oh,
You ever
I
fall into
used
the
to
trap?
I used to be just all against drafting Miami when they sucked, right? Because they're so bad for basically the whole time I've been playing fantasy since I was in middle school. But now they're good, and I've fallen into the trap of just wanting to draft Tyreek and Waddle. But we are up.
Who would take him?
Who do you guys want? I kind of like I like Dalton Schultz. Do
That's my
That
guy
might be
too.
great.
We're simpatico there.
you not like him, Loughy?
In the sixth.
Who do you want then? We have 7
No.
seconds.
Listen. Hey,
All right. Yeah, I just like Dalton Schultz because I think that, last year he was a top 5 tight end in fantasy. He could easily do that this year, especially if Gallup misses serious time. Then Schultz is also like a red zone monster. So I think Schultz is a pretty solid pick in the 6th round. And I don't think he would have fallen back to us 12 picks from here.
If David Montgomery falls, guys, we could actually implement a hyper fragile strategy because I think that is a point. 7th round, he's fallen basically into the dead zone after being maybe 4 rounds higher earlier. Certainly the news is negative, but I do think that people are over their skis a little bit with players like Khalil Herbert. I don't think this is as ready to be a timeshare as people realize in the Chicago backfield. And as you mentioned, we do not need a good offense in order for a player with high touch volume at the running back position to be a quality pick.
Agreed.
Yeah.
You guys, I was
Yeah,
just
there he
going to
goes.
mention, do you guys think our team would have been better if we didn't take Lamar, then took Kyler 1 round later, then took one of these receivers instead?
I don't know.
Well, gosh, the player I'm sad to miss out on, there are 2, Thielen and St. Brown. I feel like we can get Metcalf and Bateman's profile later in drafts.
Yeah, I'm not stoked on Metcalf this year at all.
Either.
But we also don't know who the quarterback is. Like if it's Drew Lock, he's going to air it out to him 100 times a game. He just probably won't put it within his zip code. So it's hard to say. But I don't know. Kyler Murray, yeah. If we could have got Kyler Murray over what he went. Well, okay, so yeah, we could have grabbed Murray. Then yeah, I would say yes. Probably taking a guy that's pretty similar. Yeah, it would have made sense.
Yeah, but then again, really, who knows that Kyler even falls that far, right? I feel like it's pretty lucky that we got Kyler in the 6th round.
And we kind of naturally, just the way our rankings and our board fell to us, we kind of naturally created the 0 wide receiver build, which can be kind of fun. We already got people in the chat, Brett, once again, saying this is kind of the reverse. And it kind of seems like the reverse of what a lot of people are doing this year, where they're going wide receiver heavy and then kind of stressing about that running back 2, running back 3 tiers and just taking different shots that way. Hey, there's multiple ways to do this. I just think that grabbing the guaranteed workload from players who have been superstars before is a good idea. Speaking of which, players like DeAndre Hopkins, I think, are very interesting choices now. Kadarius Toney as well.
Well, Miles Sanders, hyper fragile, baby. Let's go.
What do you guys want to do?
It's not
Whatever
the
you
worst.
want.
It's not the worst call. It's certainly
not.
better than
I mean-
Antonio Gibson, and I think there's a tier break at the position after. This will be fun. We didn't force anything. Yeah.
Number 1 offensive line.
I hate this thing that they added on Underdog, the autopilot thing. There we go.
It's a little
We
aggressive.
got him. Yeah, we got him.
Mhm.
Yeah, we got him. I took him.
All right, so let's see what's still out there at wide receiver.
It is still not looking that grim yet.
MVS is someone I wouldn't mind having.
I agree. Hunter Renfrow.
Robert Woods could be the one, but we have Derrick Henry, so that's. But it's such a concentrated offense. Does it matter that much?
That's how I kind of see it.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a little bit more positive correlation between those two than we might realize.
Like he's no
Yeah.
AJ Brown, but if you had AJ Brown and Derrick Henry on the same team, which I did, I had them in like redraft leagues, and it worked out pretty good 2 years ago. So yeah, probably not the worst. I don't hate these receivers.
No, me neither.
Not
Yeah,
all.
I still think Russell Gage and Julio Jones, again, we want to focus on concentrated offenses or voluminous offenses. And I think there's going to be plenty of fantasy points to go around to third and fourth options on the Buccaneers this year.
I also think a good way to keep your lineup like unique is if you get to week 17, not everyone's going to have Derrick Henry and the receiver, right? Because they think that now I have Henry,
sure.
I should stay away from the receivers and the quarterback. So then you can have some crazy type of stack there. Like most people who draft Jonathan Taylor aren't also trying to draft Michael Pittman as well as drafting Matt Ryan. And I think that's a good way to get unique.
For sure.
So we're about to be up here. I'm glad we took a quarterback, though, because now we're in that range where people are just going to start spam clicking quarterbacks.
And what's interesting about like Derrick Henry and a pass catcher, whether it be it AJ Brown or Robert Woods, is when when Derrick Henry isn't getting the ball, he's not taking away any of that pass catching volume at all.
You mean Traylon Burks or Robert Woods, but we knew what you meant.
What did I say?
You said AJ Brown.
No, I meant like from last year AJ Brown or to this year Robert Woods.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Honestly,
So
I think
we
these
are about to be
rookies, especially when we're low at the wide receiver position, now that make a lot of sense. Like 11th overall picks can be really, really good at football. We got a lot of options here.
We will be heavy on New Orleans if we go Olave, because we do have Kamara as well.
And they got the week 14 bye. What about, all right, we could do Woods. That has a little bit more built-in floor that we may need at a wide receiver 2 position. This is a relied on starter in our team build.
Gotcha. I also like MVS a decent amount. I think Loughy pointed that out. MVS is one of my highest owned players on Underdog.
I read an article the other day after week 1 of the preseason talking about how, MVS has really been picking Kelsey's brain about things and saying, like, how does Mahomes know where you're going to be? Or actually, Kelsey back in the day asking Mahomes how he knew where he was going to be, because Mahomes is so good when the play breaks down at improvising. And they were saying how MVS, more than any of these new players, has been able to have that football IQ. And there was a play that illustrated that in week 1 against the Bears, where the play broke down and he just, created separation during improvisation, and Mahomes found them for the first down. They were both talking about Mahomes as well, talking about how important that is and how big of a play that was by MVS. So if he ends up being one of those guys that just understands how to work in that offense, get paid $30 million, he might actually have a decent season.
Separation during improvisation. The
that was an odd
phraseology,
way of saying
Loughy.
it, but you know what I meant.
Goodness, no, that was fantastic. And of course, as we talk about him, the way it usually goes is right before he'll get picked. And there's some really good conversation in the chat happening, guys. Brett, Captain Spock, what's up, guys? So happy you guys are hanging out right now. Talking about strategy here. Brett asks another question here. I want to throw it up on the screen real quick. Is stacking as important as people make it sound? I seem to always gravitate to at least 1 to 2 receivers from the team my QB1 and 2 are on. I'll leave this conversation to you guys, but I will answer definitively yes. It's as important as people make it sound. How about you, Nick?
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's basically just like DFS. You want to have the stack, you want to have the run back. So yeah, I view it very important. Except for, I guess, technically in this case, because then we'll be stuck with like fucking James Prochet with Lamar Jackson. But most of the time, I am trying to aggressively stack the quarterback with a receiver or tight end, and sometimes running backs as well, because like I said, that's how you get unique. But we are up before Loughy answers the question. What do you want to do?
Is MVS going?
Yes, fucking Mike took him.
Awesome. What are you, Stokio?
Dirty,
What are you
man.
now?
He's watching the show and he took him because
We could go with the Lamar run back of Chase Claypool.
That's sneaky. That would not be a Lamar run back.
I'm falling on Chase Claypool. I think
run
Pickens
back,
is for
you
real.
said. Okay,
but
I
Yeah,
thought you
week
were saying
17
stack.
against Pittsburgh.
I thought you said run back. I thought you meant stack. Yeah.
So
I don't know how much of a difference that makes, but
yeah,
I think it does in week 17.
really for best ball.
Yeah, because week 17 is really how you make your money, right? So if we want to win the $2 million, we need Lamar and the Steelers to be high scoring. That's where all the money is made, really.
and that really has been the biggest conversation point. If you look at the best ball content industry this year, week 17 and week 16 correlations have been a huge point of a discussion. How important is it? How much is the field going to be using it? We're not going to have all of those answers until after the season and until after Underdog releases some of their data. But ultimately here, getting pairings of teams from week 16 and week 17 is pretty important here. I think strategically the way to really think about it without overdoing it is just think about what a winning DFS lineup looks like. That's probably what the winning week 17 Underdog lineup is going to look like. And most of the time that has positive correlation, like stacks, like you were talking about, Brett, or other types of positive correlation, like game stacks. In our case, we're focusing on Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and even some positive correlation between Derrick Henry and Robert Woods as well. Both of them fall into the same positive correlation category. They're both, or should I say, all important.
But with DFS, you're targeting high probability stacks, or at least in relation to the rest of the slate. I mean, this total is going to be set at like 41. So I get what you're saying, but if you're looking at it from that, if you're looking at it from that perspective, wouldn't you want to go into a draft and if you're looking at week 17 games, be targeting potential shootouts?
Well, you're talking about the Rinpack special, right? That's why he just reaches on Chiefs every single time and then tries to run it back with Denver. He doesn't care about ADP at all.
All right, wait, we're up real quick. Then we can continue the conversation.
It's
we
Julio
definitely don't
for me.
need another running back. Julio.
No.
I want Tolbert. Who do you want, Loughy?
Well, that would mean that we have Dalton Schultz and Jalen without Dak, right? Which is fine. Which is fine.
8
but
seconds.
Go whoever you want.
Oh, Jesus. All right, we're going Julio then.
Yes!
He does have a different buy.
I think Julio's about to smash. Why are they mad at you for starring? You did it
I
right.
don't know. It's because technically when you queue and you don't pick it, I guess that's why.
Right. I do kind of like Mecole Hardman though. He feels like the one guy in Kansas City that's just completely being ignored.
Feels like every year that's Mecole Hardman, right?
Yeah, and up until this point, you're smart to ignore him. You know, he hasn't been good, but
right.
All I'm saying is we're talking about Sky Moore. We're talking about Juju, who is has had one really good season for his career. We're talking about MVS, who is yet to have an explosive season, and that's with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback formerly. So, all I'm saying is so many of these guys have been hyped up. Mecole Hardman's the guy that gets completely left behind for fair reasons, but aren't there question marks about literally every non-Travis Kelce Kansas City pass catcher this year?
Right.
Definitely.
That's
100%.
kind of the way it goes. And there's going to be some variance. I think it's a situation where in best ball, just go for it is the right answer with these wide receivers at their ADP. And then in redraft, I think it might be a very frustrating year. Like you're going to get spike weeks, and then you're going to get weeks where you're getting 8 points. I've actually come back around. Again, I know we're talking best ball, but I've come back around at the redraft Juju Smith-Schuster call in the mid rounds because I think you are going to get like 9 to 11 points every single week on that one. How exciting is that for best ball compared to the spike weeks you're probably going to get from players like Hardman or MVS? I don't know, but when you have to start players every week is a little bit of a different equation.
Yes. Something I think I brought up last week. Romeo Doubs literally feels eerily like Marquez Callaway from last year.
That's a good...
This feels like we're going to talk him up to be like an 8th round pick, and then fucking Christian Watson is going to score 3 touchdowns week 1. You never hear Romeo Doubs again. That's literally what it feels. And Tanyan's back now off the pup. I don't know. I mean, I still like Doubs, but in the 10th round, I think that's a little crazy. Whereas in like redraft, he's like, no one's even heard of him, so he's free in redraft.
And it's all because for Romeo Doubs, it's all because Aaron Rodgers talked him up, and people are like, well, Aaron Rodgers never gasses up his rookie receivers. Like, that's what it came down to. At least with Callaway, there was literally nobody else.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. It looked like there actually could be volume there. And also, remember, Christian Watson, their very athletic second-round pick, has not been on the field. That recently changed. I just saw that he is practicing in full for the first time this week.
Yeah.
All right.
Shad
We
White,
are
we are
up.
back on the clock. Let's see here. I think we could keep going wide receiver.
Draft is moving at a good pace, too.
I
like
do
it.
agree. I do agree. I'm totally out on Galladay.
What about Gallup? You out on Gallup, too?
Pickens would be, I mean, I'm getting hyped about Pickens after that catch. Gallup is okay because when he's, I'm worried it might be a little bit of a lost season.
Well,
That's my
we're
only
going Gallup.
concern. Okay,
Go
that's
anyone.
fair.
I would have been. I think all of these guys are risky there. Like Pickens, I like. I just don't know if that offense is going to be competent. I tend to think Mike Tomlin will at least make it look semi-functional.
Yeah. See, the thing with
That's
Pickens too
my
is
belief.
we already drafted Claypool, so now we're
Right.
balls deep into the Steelers game against the Ravens. Like you said, what if that isn't the game?
And we have Schultz too, but
Mhm.
it's a little bit different tight end.
Yeah, I mean, also Gallup, I feel like the range of outcomes for him is like either he's going to be like a smash pick here or just do nothing. I feel like there's really no in between.
Right. I agree with
that. Yeah. The thing I like about the way this team is built out is that we've seen a history of spike weeks and a history of volume from these wide receivers. I think people might say this team looks a little bit boring or like a has-been type of team. But now that we're in the 10th and 11th round, this is the actual point you want to start switching over to pure upside thinking. And I understand why people are thinking more upside based in a tournament like this. But at the same time, from a value-based perspective, we actually want to start now. Can you go back off of the draft board for a minute? I just want to see what we've got from a flex availability standpoint, Nick.
You want to see our team or?
Loughy's out.
No. I'm here.
Said, fuck this, I'm leaving.
KJ
All right.
Osborne's been a player I've been hyping up as well. I think he's going to be heavily utilized in a new pass-heavy Minnesota offense.
Could be 3 receiver sets too.
I actually love this area
Burns
of the
banged
draft
up.
for wide receiver. Like, other than Galladay, I'm happy with all these players.
See, you know what the thing is? I still believe Galladay is good, but I do know that he literally looked like he had no idea how to play football during preseason.
There's been some really concerning stuff. Obviously, again, I'm in the New York area, so I might be getting some biased reporting, but there is he's just like not getting any separation, and so he's just not getting the ball. Like, no targets during training camp.
What about your boy Christian Watson? Too early?
No, I don't think it's too early.
I mean, think about the history of second-round receivers in Green Bay.
If he's the skeleton key this year, I think it makes a
I
lot
also-
of sense.
I also
ahead,
like
Nick.
Dotson. I was gonna say I also like Dotson a decent amount, but we can go Watson.
So I'm fine with either. For me, the tiebreaker is Aaron Rodgers over Carson Wentz.
Oh, of course.
I don't know.
Wentz stinks, dude.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, no, of course he
But-
stinks, but it just seems like Tolbert has a good, not Tolbert, the guy I
Dotson?
mentioned his name, Dotson. Yeah, they seems like they have a good connection based on everything I've read.
Oh, I don't disagree with you. Like at that spot, I like him. With me, it's just so interesting in Green Bay because you have Alan Lazard, who's never had more than 500 yards in a season. You have Robert Tonyan, who is entirely touchdown dependent, but then you've got guys like Romeo Doubs going where earlier than Watson. You have Christian Watson as a rookie. You have all of these guys that no one knows actually who it's going to be. And if Rodgers does find someone that's his guy and we land him late in the draft, I don't know.
My biggest thing is, like, I realize that it took a few years for Devontae Adams to catch on and have the trust of Aaron Rodgers in full.
Sure.
But I really feel like we know who Alan Lazard is. Maybe I'm just totally underestimating the player, the talent, but I actually think that in terms of number one receiver profile, Watson actually profiles better as a number 1 with Lazard as a solid number 2. Maybe I'm wrong here. It's just I think the sky's the limit for this second round pick in Watson.
Yeah, I mean, Green Bay is kind of like discount Kansas City, right? Because we don't really know.
For sure.
Like, they're both great quarterbacks, and we don't really know who their number one guy is, aside from, I guess, technically in Kansas City, the number one guy we know is Kelsey.
Right. I was going to say, it's Kansas City without a Travis Kelce, which makes it even more intriguing.
And it's
That's a
cheaper.
good point.
And like, if you're drafting, like, what did Lazard go in the 5th round or something this draft? Probably.
I think he goes in like the 6th.
Okay, I would 5th or 6th. Yeah, but still, we just took Watson in the 12th.
Yeah.
So, was it the 12th? Yeah, the 12th.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problems with that at all. Do we want a second quarterback?
Yeah, exactly where I was thinking.
I was thinking Matt Ryan because
Matty Ice.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
And then should we go and try and nab, like, is Campbell still on there, or can we go Pierce, like, or any of those guys?
They're both still available. 100%.
So not exciting, but
yeah, Campbell, Pierce, both available.
They're free.
Mm-hmm. And here's something else that's interesting. We also, we don't need to hammer the week 17 correlation here, but they're playing the Giants in week 17. So even if we just create like a little skinny stack here, that's going to be a very abnormal game stack. Yeah, Wandale. I think Wandale's got the starting role locked in the slot. And I think actually he might low-key be the second best running back they have on the roster.
Are there any viable tight ends still out there?
Yes. I mean, we already have Schultz, so like I feel like if we have one of these guys, it's not that. I really like Tanyan, but again, I don't know how much we want to go into the Green Bay.
It's just tough. Like, I had good teams last year where my tight end got hurt, and or both tight ends got hurt, and you have no tight end for the rest of the year at all. So, in a case like this, I like Schultz. I think Schultz will be the guy in here every week if he's healthy. Who do you guys like though that would give us a little bit of protection in the event that he's not?
I know he's hurt already, but Irv Smith, we got a little bit of we could do, again, week 17 correlation with the Packers.
Super athletic, too. I mean, that guy, he has a lot of potential.
It's funny that you brought up injuries and stuff just hurting your teams. Like, all my teams before Gronk retired have Gronk. So those teams are just assassins.
That's brutal. And you probably drafted him relatively early.
Yeah, like the 11th round. But at the time, like, that seemed like he could have been a top 5 tight end going at pick like 110. So it just made sense to me.
Right.
But now
I think we got him 18th round in one of our first drafts, like the first best Ball Mania we did.
Yeah. Oh, this was because there was still speculation that he would retire. So he was going late. That's right.
Yeah. So basically here if we wanted Irv, we have to take him, but we might not get Wandale. So what do we want to do?
I think we take Irv.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute.
I think we should just take Wandale personally.
But then it's more likely that I'm going to want to take somebody like a Paris Campbell around after that.
Okay.
I like the Irv Smith upside, quite frankly.
Okay. So you're not worried about the injury like at all? Like he had thumb surgery a couple days ago?
He's going to be ready for the start of the season. That's what they say. I mean,
less likely to be injured in preseason.
That's very true.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. He's one of those players that if he's good, he's actually a pass catching tight end. He's someone that could actually give you some spike weeks. And once you get this far down, you're looking at like Irv Smith or Gerald Everett. Just the ceiling on one of them seems way higher than the other.
Yeah, a tight end I wanted to bring up real quick. Mike took him. Mike Gesicki. He seems like legitimately the dumbest. And I'm sorry, Mike. Like, this is like, I don't know why people are taking him. Because he's like, their Dolphins are trying to make a block. And it seems like if he doesn't learn how to block, Mike McDaniel doesn't care and he'll just trade him.
I mean,
so not
think
a
about
fan?
how vital the outside blocking is for the Kyle Shanahan run offense.
System.
If you don't want to do it, you're not a part of it.
Yeah, and we franchise tagged him. His ass might get traded. Like, I mean, I like Gesicki as a player. So, like, if Mike McDaniel wasn't the head coach, I think you can bank on Gesicki. But if he's not playing all that much, like, it's starting to scare me. And I have a decent amount of Gesicki because I think he's a good player.
I will say, Nick, Mike McDaniel is a tough guy to listen to. His press conferences are brutal.
It's funny.
Oh God, I was listening to it for one of the preseason videos. They have to do that grunt work, and he says, "I'm encouraged by the idea of Tua not playing in the preseason." Like, first of all, what does that even mean? And so he's I don't know. Maybe he's a first year coach. I remember Nick Sirianni's first press conference.
He'll
all
get
of
the
us in
coach
Philly
speak
were just
down.
like, "Oh, what did we do?" But
Did you see
I
the
ended up
interview-
liking the guy, and he's gotten way better.
the interview with McDaniels? It was like Yeezy drop day, and like he's like a sneakerhead, and like one of the guys that was asking him a question was like, "Did you order your Yeezys today?" He goes, "Oh fuck," and he just like walked away and went to go order his Yeezys.
Did he really?
Yeah, so it was very funny.
That's kind of funny.
He's just like a funny guy.
You know
I
who
don't
else
think he
does
takes the
good
things
pressers is Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff
Yeah.
Kingsbury's he's I don't know, one of us.
Yeah, I mean, Cliff making Kyler coach the fourth quarter was hilarious.
Yo, got to give a shout out to longtime watcher, listener, Sammy Telesco. What's up, the Buffalo War Pigs?
the Buffalo
The
War.
Buffalo War Pigs. Bills Mafia, let's go Chargers. What's up, man?
All right,
Happy
we are
Monday.
up. So, are we going with that correlation, or has it been stolen from us? It has been.
I mean, yeah, now we're in the weeds here.
Wait,
I don't
all
like
of them
Van
got
at all.
taken?
Yeah, Campbell and Pierce. So, what do we want to
What?
do?
What about Watkins or Beckham?
Beckham's hurt
Corona.
again, isn't he?
He
Or,
got hurt again?
Isn't Watkins hurt again?
Yes.
Sammy Watkins, yeah. I think Odell is like going to be potentially key to winning this thing in Week 17. Like if he's healthy and he's on the Bills, or if he's on the Rams.
You guys are insane.
Yeah, I mean, for this to happen, you have to hit the absolutely craziest outcome possible, right?
I
This
know.
isn't
Yeah,
like
we're
your
looking
home
for
league.
0.1% outcomes here, and it's a player who has actually done it before. Here's the one thing I'll say. I don't know anything about the medical part behind it, but they did say that like they felt they needed to do this surgery prior to him actually getting hurt, and they actually feel encouraged about where his knee's at now, more so than prior. Obviously, you can have a step back at any point, but great player when healthy. Bottom line.
Oh, sure.
All right, so are we just going to do 3 more receivers?
God, he's had 2 ACL tears in 2 years.
Got that
I mean,
dog.
that's the
In 2 years.
that's true. That's man, what a shame.
I
love
know.
watching the guy healthy.
Tell me about it.
Yeah,
Maybe
but
you
I
just
mean, if he
stack
comes,
up one Ravens player. Sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
I was gonna say if he comes back like Week 10, you don't have to worry about him tearing his ACL up until Week 10. He'll just have 7 straight healthy games. Oh, we brought it before.
Maybe.
All right, so we are back up, and like you said, if we want to go Ravens, they all go super late. So if we want to get like Duvernay or Prochet, they're like free basically. So what do we do? It's up
Well,
to you
we're
guys.
definitely going to need some help at wide receiver looking at who we've got right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have to hit some luck. Man.
It's
Duvernay
doable,
is
though.
a long-term shot. I do it. We need a little stack.
Who do you
know?
want? Duvernay?
Duvernay. Who did you
Okay.
want?
I wanted Tyquan Thornton, baby.
Oh, I could have been convinced. I thought he looked really good.
No, I like Devin Duvernay because he like didn't practice at all, so everyone's hyping up Prochet, but Duvernay is going under the radar. What do you think about Devin Duvernay, Loughy? He's a player you definitely have to think about all the time.
Yeah, zero thoughts on him. I think if we're drafting him in the 16th and we have Lamar Jackson, it's fine. That's really it. Like, I don't have a strong take whatsoever.
Neither do I. That's why I asked you.
Do you think Bateman is going to be that alpha that they need, though? That's the question I have.
I think so,
You
personally.
think he will?
He was a
There's
first
no
round
way to
draft
make
pick
the
last
trade
year.
unless you feel like you've got it. Unless you feel like you've already got it on the roster. You don't make that trade with Marquise Brown.
That's literally what I said on the Fantasy Football channel when I made the video talking about him. You don't. It's like AJ Brown. You don't trade AJ Brown if you don't think you can replace him. At least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean that. I don't know.
See, that feels a lot more overzealous to me. Like, really, Titans, you hit on AJ freaking Brown, you're just gonna do it again. You must love.
That's
I mean,
my
someone
thing, yeah.
makes me feel like they love Treylon.
And they didn't even get that much for him. They just didn't want to. The thing with AJ Brown is they didn't want
They
to
didn't
pay
want to
him.
pay him.
exactly.
Brett Skinner in the chat brought up Terrence Marshall. He scored yesterday, I believe, or the other day. Are we back in on the Terrence Marshall train?
I kind
Scored
of
last preseason. I'm in on him too.
He's got a
He
better
had
quarterback.
a horrible rookie season, and
Yeah, but he had a horrible quarterback.
no. Hold on. I'm not. It's not an indictment on him. I'm not saying that.
Sorry.
He might have a horrible quarterback again this year, if we're being fair. But no. Look, who knows? With Terrace Marshall Jr., you're looking at a guy that they just probably are going to use everywhere, but I don't know how often they're going to use it. Like, I don't think he even locked down the wide receiver 3 job yet. He's been has he even been practicing with the ones? I think he's been practicing with the 2s and the 1s.
Who would you say is the number 3 receiver on the team if it's not him?
Man, he was the one on that LSU offense that isn't good, apparently. That's kind of what the bet is right now.
I mean, Hollywood Higgins is there, and he has a connection with Baker dating back to college.
Yeah, no.
Terrace Marshall returned to practice today. He was injured since August 5th.
Okay, so I lied about his preseason game. That was last year, then.
I think he definitely could be the number 3. I'm not saying that. I just don't know.
And we got correlation with the Colts there,
he's
too. I
locked
believe
in
they
yet.
play Carolina in Week 17. Tampa Bay does, excuse me. So we got a little with Julio Jones, a little skinny stack there.
All right, let's go Terrence Marshall, unless you guys want anyone different.
I'm fine with it.
Go for it.
Okay. What do you think about what's the guy's name? Blanked completely. Jalen Reagor.
And
You think it could be Jalen Reagor season?
No. Hold on. Your Terrace Marshall thing, though, makes sense because Robbie Anderson was shit last year as well. So who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe Terrace Marshall's good and he is the wide receiver 2 there. And like Baker Mayfield's actually okay. And the offense looks better because they have Christian McCaffrey. I don't hate it. But no,
Also,
Jalen Reagor was playing into the 3rd quarter in week 1 of the preseason. Like, this guy might not even be on the team. They might cut him.
Yeah, I know. I just thought it'd be funny to bring him up.
One
get you
pick
fired up a little.
before Justin Jefferson. But in a weird way, it's probably, they probably don't pull the trigger on the A.J. Brown trade if they even get like a remotely decent player out of Jalen Reagor.
But rub it in, Matt. One pick ahead of the guy that went number 1 in this draft we're doing.
Jesus.
God, what a disaster. What are your guys' thoughts on Velus Jones?
He's old.
Miss me with that. Like,
well, he is
old,
old, but you're not drafting him in Dynasty.
I think he could
what
be
are
the
the
number 2
chances
guy
that
there.
the Bears wide receiver 3 is the skeleton key to the Best Ball Mania 3 tournament?
I'm not saying he is, but I'm not saying, Laviska Shenault or Danny Gray are either.
Yeah, I mean, some of these guys, you might as well just scroll down. Like, Equimenius St. Brown is probably the number 2 receiver there.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I have no idea. But again, that's kind of why I'm asking that question, because behind Mooney, who is there? Not including Cole Kmet.
It's Cole Kmet, Mooney, Pringle.
Pringle,
right?
St. Brown.
Right.
Yes.
And who knows? Was Byron Pringle just decent because Patrick Mahomes was throwing him the ball?
He was decent for like 2 games a year every time.
Right, exactly.
Thursday Night Football. He lights it up.
Only prime time.
Okay, what about this as an insanity pick? Nick Westbrook-Akine. Likely in 3 wide receiver sets. I get it. It's the Titans. It's almost a negative correlation pick to our top player in Derrick Henry. But it also adds to the uniqueness because most people are not going to be stacking up this many Titans players. And if there is a period of time where Henry is out and they're forced to go more pass heavy, Westbrook-Akine almost necessarily has a bigger role. Insane? Probably.
I like Braxton Berrios.
I have had a lot of him at the end of drafts.
There's just no one down here at this point. I think you can actually draft Cole Beasley because I think he's going to be on a team as well. I've drafted a decent amount of him in the 18th round.
How many wide receivers do we have?
We have 10. The draft is over.
Oh,
This is
we're
my
done.
favorite kind of build. I love it.
I thought we were
Yes,
going in 18 for us. All right.
No, this was just the 18th round.
I see that now. Yeah.
We have a shit ton of receivers. Are any of them very good? I don't know. Maybe they
God,
will be.
Pittman better be good this year.
Yeah, this team is just gonna fucking sink down a hole if Pittman isn't good.
I mean, look, there is a lot of upside.
Yeah, no, this is what you got to do to win, though. You got to do something crazy like this. And we only have 4 running backs. So.
I mean, this is like, I think we implemented a lot of strategic elements to this draft. We have solid positive correlations. We have interesting stacks. I think we did a good job of getting unique stacks. What's really weird about it is that none of these players make us feel particularly good. There's a certain amount of unease that comes with all these players, but we can tell ourselves a story about how each of these players succeeded within their own offenses. And so I actually think we did a pretty good job there. The draft finishes. Lepre, you got the tradition of breaking down our roster, and then we'll analyze it and get out of here within the next few minutes. Thanks for hanging out, guys. We got 50 hanging out in the chat, including some longtime favorites hanging out with Loughy today. Nick, break it down for us.
All right, so our quarterbacks, we have Lamar and Matt Ryan. Our running backs are Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Breece Hall, and Miles Sanders. Our receivers are filled with Michael Pittman, Robert Woods, Chase Claypool, Julio Jones, Michael Gallup, Christian Watson, Odell Beckham Jr., Devin Duvernay, Terrence Marshall, Nick Westbrook, E. Cain. And our tight ends are Irv Smith and Dalton Schultz. What a team.
What a team. What a team. And you may not like it, but this is the peak Best Ball Mania 3 tournament out there. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Loughy, thank you especially for hanging out on this fine Monday. This definitely falls into the hyper fragile strategy. How are your overall feelings here about this team and not about the paperwork we need to do behind the scenes?
I like it. I like the running backs. I would have liked to have had one more quality. I would have liked to have had one more wide receiver that's already, solidified and that we know what we're getting. But aside from that, I like it. I think at tight end we're strong, at running back we're strong, at quarterback we're strong. Yes, you have to play at least 3 receivers every week, so that makes it a little bit sketchy. But I do like the upside down there. And as Captain Spock pointed out, Ryan's had a top 20 receiver every year. Actually, if you go back to 2013, not including last year, he says it had a top 7 receiver every single year. The problem is most of the time it was Julio Jones, who is a generational talent. So
he's on our team, so
I know.
On Matt Ryan's team.
Let's hope Michael Pittman can channel some. I think Pittman can be one of the next great receivers. So I'm bought in on Pittman, but we'll see. Overall, I like it. Little sketched out about wide receiver, but aside from that, I think we can do well.
I actually really like this squad. Nick, any final words before we head out today?
Yeah, I mean, if any of these receivers hit big, like if Michael Gallup returns in 3 weeks, then maybe this really is just the craziest roster. Or Christian Watson, any of these guys really. We just need to hit.
And I think we have some appreciating assets like Michael Gallup, who when he comes back should have an immediate larger role than his draft round entails. This was a lot of fun, guys. Make sure to follow Loughy at Loughy_D. He's doing all sorts of NFL content, fantasy football content, preseason betting content. Guys, you have to check that out over on the Odd Shopper channel. Then, of course, we've got the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel with Nick Lepre. Follow him at NotoriousFNTSY and yourself. I'm Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. And of course, we are continuing throughout the draft days of August, more live drafts and more content for you on the Best Ball channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're new to Underdog Fantasy, the platform you just saw on the screen today, make sure to sign up using promo code Stokastic so you can get up to a $100 first match deposit bonus. And over at Stokastic.com, we'll throw in the Best Ball draft kit as well. You guys, this has been a whole lot of fun. We will be back, a live drafters draft tomorrow with Notorious Fantasy. My name's Matt Savoca, Draftaholic. Follow him, Nick Lepre, and thank you again to our special guest, Loughy. What's up? See you guys later. Have a great day.